Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's a live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yeah.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Begin on ice. Jamaica returns to the Winter Olympics, not as a novelty, but as a medal-focused program. From Milan to Havana, where Caribbean students are navigating daily blackouts amid worsening energy crises, we examine whether Cuba's current strain is worse than what they call the special period of the 1990s. And later, a parliament without an opposition in Barbados, a brand new prime minister in Bangladesh, and the passing of a global civil rights figure. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story's Global Lead. From the tropics to the ice track, Jamaica's bobsled team continues to defy expectations at the Winter Olympics. The program, which first captured global attention at the 1988 Winter Games in Calgary, has now grown into a multi-event competitor, with athletes qualifying across men's and women's bobsleigh disciplines. At this year's 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics, Jamaica is competing again with a new generation of athletes aiming to move the story beyond the iconic Cool Runnings era and towards competitive results on the world stage. The team's best ever Olympic finish remains a 14th place result in the men's two-man event at the 1994 Games. But recent performances, including strong results on the North American Cup circuit, are building confidence about the program's future. So, what does success look like for warm Jamaica in a cool winter sport? And how far can the program go? We're joined this evening by sports analysts Trishana McGowan and Kemar Ford. Hello, Trishana. Hello, Kemar.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here as we have this conversation about what's going on in Italy. Now, Italy's far away for many Jamaicans and the Winter Olympics are happening there. Trishana, start us off first. What does a Winter Olympics program for Jamaica, cold Italy, having warm Jamaicans look like? And is it different from what we would have seen in Cool Runnings, that iconic movie that took a look at the Calgary Olympics in 1988?
I think that we were enough. You know, in old time people say, we said she little enough, you see? And I think, you know, that we usually see it as an insult, but I think now as a nation, it's, you know, continuous pride and joy. I'm so happy to once again, not just have us there, you know, making up numbers, but we're actually competing on the women's side, because Mika did tremendously for us on the women's side. The two-man bobsleigh, you know, not how they would have wanted it. They would have wanted to go on better. But it wasn't to be. The four-man bobsleigh, you know, also there. And I think, Jody, when you look at the numbers again and the competitors, Henry Rivers for also so young, 18 years old, and you know, just to watch us having the numbers, having those numbers being competitors It's really warming of the heart. I saw Lewis Hamilton, giving out a big shout out to us, Formula One. Mind you,
no. Let's talk about that. Because I saw that quote from Lewis Hamilton, sharing it on his Instagram story, bigging up the Jamaican bobsleigh team, talking about how inspirational it was to see the Jamaican team there, to be that kind of team that stands against the odds. And given that Lewis Hamilton is a 7, some would argue 8-time world champion in Formula One and one of the most storied figures in the race, it meant a lot to see very, very small Jamaica represented there. And I think we have a graphic that we'll be able to show you of that shows you what Lewis Hamilton said there at those games in Italy. Come on forward. Having then heard from Trishana about what's going on, and see, that's Lewis Hamilton with his global endorsement saying this team means business. A massive shout out to the Jamaican bobsleigh team. Now, no other team has a sort of mystique and popularity around it. Kamar, talk to us about what that means for Jamaica and a federation that has had a president in Chris Stokes since 1995 and is moving, it believes, slowly and surely towards becoming a medal contender.
So let me just say good evening, everyone. Kemal Ford here. It's been a good journey for Jamaica. I think we're represented well across various facets, and us as Jamaicans, we always want our presence to be felt everywhere, in the sense that we want to be aligned with something, whether that by music, sport, anything, as long as the Jamaican presence is there, really. And as Trishana said earlier on, we're not just there making up numbers, really, and seeing moments like this acts as a moment of inspiration, in the sense that Jamaica has now a plethora of sport from which to choose from. It can not only just do the track and field and be good at football and everything, but swimming, Winter Olympics and all, where Jamaica doesn't experience now. The closest thing we got to a snow recently was the cold front, and now just to see Jamaica being represented to the fullest and all, it's a good feeling. And we're not just there making up numbers, we're trying our best to place high and just to get better. So in the future, these athletes are basically foundation really laying for the future generation to come, in the sense that more money, more investment, more time can be made into this, where we can say Jamaica has done well across various Olympic sports, apart from track and field and cycling, which our medals have come from the Summer Olympics. Maybe in one day, a couple years on that, probably next 8 to 12 years on that, we might probably see Jamaica getting that first medal on the podium, and it's good to see just them competing on our own.
I think it's so important that you have put that timeline there, that sort of sense of anticipation for the nation, one that is so accustomed to doing well in the Summer Olympics. You're saying to us Jamaicans, look out, the Winter Olympics could be a place that you pick up a medal as well. But let's listen to Taekwondo Tracy, someone who's shifted from Summer Olympic kind of sports to now the Winter Olympics. Well, we'll talk about him in a minute, Trishana, but help us understand, because we'll get back to that clip in a moment. What would you define as success for Jamaica at the Winter Olympics? Because Kamal has said 8 years, 10 years. Is it still medals? Is it top 10 finishes right now, or simply consistent qualification that will allow us to feel as a country, you know what, we're making progress?
I must first commend Chris Stokes. He's so proactive.
Former bobsledder as well, so he's, as president of the association, he knows the ropes in this. Yeah,
and he doesn't wait for an athlete to say, oh, I'm interested. He goes hunting. I remember he recruited me, and I was like, Chris, listen, being competitive is just not my thing, But for me, I love how assertive, proactive he is with hunting. And I think because of that, you find a lot more athletes pushing themselves forward into the event. And, corporate Jamaica will eventually
That's Trishana McGowan there talking about corporate Jamaica. You just said corporate Jamaica, and you chipped out Trishana, and I think that's so important because sponsorship becomes an ongoing question. You're saying corporate Jamaica is jumping in thanks to the work of Chris Stokes as president?
I'm saying because of his work, I can see them eventually getting there, because that's how we are as a nation. We have to see progress first before we lend that hand. And I think because of his work and, now the success of the team, because they're successful, despite not getting onto the podium, they're successful. We have a lot of competitors here, more than we have had before. Initially, we had a 4-man bobsleigh. Now we have, Miko finishing 14th, the first Jamaican woman to ever finish that high up, in her event. You also have, like I said, Shane Peter, Junior Harris, that did fairly well in the 2 months. They would have wanted to go on better. We have Taekwondo Tracy and his team in the 4-man bobsleigh. So for me, that is success itself for us at the Winter Olympics.
Let's take a listen to Taekwondo Tracy as he shows Jamaican colors there in Italy and talks about the Jamaican bobsleigh team.
So from my point of view, in order to be a good sprinter and a good bobsledder, you have to have explosiveness and a lot of power. And most sprinters don't necessarily have a lot of arm power, but they do have explosiveness. So you have to have the two in order to basically come over to the bobsled and move that mammoth of a sled from point A to point B. It's not a very light thing to move, so yeah, you have to be strong.
I wasn't really competing in a winter sport, so you weren't exposed to certain things, and the temperature is...
There's an aura around Jamaica, being Jamaican, Jamaican athleticism that is burnished by cool runnings and made more specific in relation to bobsleigh and Jamaica bobsleigh. We're actually running 2 parallel programs. We're running the Legend of Cool Runnings, which is sort of a happy-go-lucky inspirational story, side by side with the legend we are creating, which is medal-winning performance on ice. And those 2 tracks are going side by side, and they are mutually endorsing. The question is, did it change bobsleigh in the world? And it sure did. Many countries who got involved in bobsleigh afterwards was because of cool runnings.
So we're inspirational even in the Winter Olympics. Come on forward. As we watch this sort of thing, we just heard Trishana say to us that corporate Jamaica is likely to come on board after they see success. How is this team able to then stay competitive, attract the kind of support that they need, and continue this program so that we can get to that 8 to 10 year mark that you've told us about?
Yeah, I think in general, us as fans, we just need to continue to support them in the sense that via social media. Social media is the biggest tool and everything. Basically, sharing, liking, commenting, encouraging them, because those, as much as athletes might have busy lives and everything, they sit down and go through comment and everything, and a lot of them, even when a lot of people doubt them, they might go and say, okay, then you doubting me and everything. I'm in training today. I don't feel like doing that extra if I'm going to do it because I remember that this person is doubting me. And from us as Jamaicans, we just need to support them in the sense that make it be a situation in which if we see them and everything in person, just congratulate them and everything for their efforts. Because again, as Jamaicans, we're not known for being in winter sports per se. And again, a lot of these athletes have basically made sacrifices just to support them represent the country. And overall, again, this can also serve as some form of inspiration for youngsters and everything to basically say, okay, then I'm good at track and field, some form of athleticism is there as well. I mean, went to the bobsled because a lot of the athletes who are competing, Taekwondo Tracy, for example, was an Olympian at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and now was the first Jamaican man in Jamaican athlete, a track and field athlete to become a Winter Olympian. So again, dual athletes really, and again, they just need more support from us as a community here in Jamaica and within the diaspora.
I think that's so important. Brand Jamaica going overseas, getting the visibility, working towards those medals and continuing to have the aura and mystique all around it. Trishana McGowan and Kemal Ford, sports journalists, thank you so very much for talking to us about what's going on in the Winter Olympics in Italy.
Thank you so much for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Jamaicans, you look proudy, you feel proud, you feel nuff and bossy. Well, that's certainly something that only we could do. But up next, we'll talk about our neighbors, Cuba, and how they are going through an incredibly difficult time. This, as Jamaican and other Caribbean students attempt to finish their studies. We'll go in depth with those students next, inside Lead Story.
cost less. Oh, entrepreneurs, let's go digital! The government of Jamaica and the European Union present Digital Jamaica Training Series. Learn how technology grows your business. Choose the right digital tools. Manage your staff, customers, and money digitally. Data security and privacy. Artificial intelligence. We'll be in every parish. Apply online. www.jbdc.net. Log on fast. Digital Jamaica. Powering connectivity for MSMEs.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
Welcome to What a Guan. Now, What a Guan is CVM TV's new Vox Pop program, Vibes Yes Vox Pop program. Hey Jamaica, you're watching What a Guan.
What a Guan.
Coming to you from Montego Bay. Hello, my people.
What a Guan is back. The People's Program is back in full force on CVM TV.
What a Guan! What a Guan! Cross!
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Now continuing inside the Lead Story's global lead with a different kind of story. Not as uplifting as the last, we're now taking a look at what Cuba is facing. They're facing a deepening energy crisis, prolonged blackouts, fuel shortages, and mounting pressure on essential services. For the Caribbean, this is not a distant headline. They're right above Jamaica. And hundreds of regional students, including Jamaicans, are currently in Cuba, many pursuing medical training under long-standing cooperation agreements. Jamaica is now in discussions to renegotiate its health cooperation framework with Cuba. As Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton has indicated a review of the existing Memorandum of Understanding. But if the energy collapse in Cuba worsens, what happens to the students? We're watching our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade say they're keeping their eyes on this. And if the sanctions are the central driver, is that a big deal? Or is this a broader structural economic unraveling? And most importantly, is CARICOM prepared for a regional contingency plan? Let's listen now to students who are here with us. Ricardo, an Antiguan student in Cuba, and we have online with us as well another student here with us. Hold on, they're going to give me her name in a few. Look at how pretty she is. Antonelia Matthews there on the ground in Cuba. Thanks so much, Jamaican student Antonelia. Ricardo is an Antiguan student there in Jamaica. And inside Global Lead, we want you to have an appreciation of what's going on the ground. Antonelia, let me start off with you. Hi and welcome. Hi, Antonelia.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so
Hello.
much. Thanks so much for joining us. You're on the ground in Cuba right now. What are you doing there?
I'm currently pursuing a degree in medicine.
All right. So you're a medical student there in Cuba. Which year are you in?
Yeah. I am in pre-medical right now. So I'm studying Spanish and then after we'll move on to the sciences and stuff.
All right, so we're just going to ask audience, this is not a regular kind of interruption. Because of the situation on the ground in Cuba and interruptions that are there because of the fuel shortage, we are making sure that we can have this interview with Antonelia. So we're going to make sure that we have as much of this conversation as possible. You're very much at the start of your program then, Antonelia. What does it mean for you to be there during a very pressured time like this with increased U.S. sanctions that have now had experts say the country has only about 10 days of fuel supply left?
It feels really unfortunate to be in Cuba at a time like this when the U.S. is having increased sanctions on the country. As you know, the reason why most of us chose to come to Cuba, it's not a strange reason. It's because it is significantly more affordable to study here than in other countries. And the majority of us come here to study to relieve our parents from the burden of finances and to also pursue our dreams. So being here, it's a bit stressful also, while also having to pay attention and be careful about what is going on around us as well.
Your family isn't there with you. What do they say about what they see on the news and their fears and concerns about what you might be facing there on the ground? Because we hear reports on this side of blackouts for up to 20 hours for the day in most places, pumps not working, so water supplies are compromised, and now a garbage collection problem. What do your family and friends think?
They're a bit worried. I am only 19 years old and this is my first rodeo living on my own, and I'm in a completely different country. So they're a bit worried, but my mother, she's always telling me that I should take it one day at a time. Don't let one news article or other negative source in. So their advice to me, my family and my friends, their advice is to just focus on your studies and God will sort it out after.
What does it look like there on the ground in Cuba? Take us around with you in a regular day now, thanks to the increased sanctions. What was it like before when you just got there, and what is it that you're seeing now?
Okay, so before, when I just arrived to Cuba, I was able to, take public transportation. There wasn't really a time limit on when I was able to get a taxi. But now with the increased sanctions, we're low on fuel, we're low on gas. The drivers, they're increasing the fare of how much you have to pay to take a taxi. And so it's a bit difficult. I have not been able to go to school now, but I have been accommodated in such a way because we have no fuel to support the transportation and the buses and the taxis. So it has been a bit difficult, and you just have to ensure that if you're going out, you can't go late at night because there's a possibility that you will not be able to find your way home without having to pay an expensive fee.
You're there for school. If school isn't happening the way it normally would be, how is it happening now?
We have been accommodated. I am an auto finance student living here in Cuba, so I don't dorm on the campus. So I live in a accommodation here, and today my teacher actually came and she helped us with lessons because we have exams pending next week.
So self-finance students are a big chunk of how Cuba gains its foreign exchange. How are other self-finance students doing, and how are they doing compared to those scholarship students who are on the ground in Cuba?
I can't really represent for majority of the self-financed student, because where I live where a generator is accessible. So if the electricity goes or if the water goes, I am still able to cook and I'm still able to have light. But it is a really big issue because some of these auto-finance students, they live amongst the local Cubans, so they are experiencing the same issues that the other local Cubans would experience. So if electricity goes, water goes, and so the signal as well. So it has been a bit difficult for them. Also, since they're not on scholarship, if education cannot continue here, it can be a bit difficult for them to continue their education in Jamaica, given that Cuba is a country that's in a different language and they're not at the end of their program. So getting transcripts, as well as having to now find this expensive amount of money for tuition to go to, let's say, UE or UTech, it can be a problem.
Talk to us then about what you've been hearing from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith has said that 320 students on the ground are currently in a WhatsApp group. Are you part of that group?
Yes, I am.
What are you hearing from the ministry?
So far we've been put in a group and they have sent out like an emergency plan on what we should do or what we should not do in case there's an emergency here. What they've really been saying is that we should deliberate with our families and friends on what we actually say, oh, you should go back to Jamaica, or oh, you should stay in Cuba. They have just said it's really, the decision is ours essentially, so we should really take into consideration what we think is best for ourselves.
Most major airlines, including Air Canada, though, have suspended flights into Cuba because Cuba does not have jet A1 fuel allowing for those flights to come back off the island. If you wanted to leave, could you afford to?
I would be able to afford to leave, but I cannot.
Antonelia is breaking up there and she's talking to us from Cuba.
That for all the other students that live here.
So you could afford to leave, everybody else couldn't. Is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade giving you some options if those students don't want to be trapped in Cuba for what could be difficult times until the middle of March, we're being told by Cuban officials?
I haven't seen any options being made available. They have really only just said that we should speak with our family and friends on what we seem is best for ourselves. So they haven't really said. They
haven't really said anything. What, I mean, Antonelia?
We will do this, we will do that. There hasn't been a clear evacuation.
So I'm taking from what Antonelia said there, that there hasn't been a clear evacuation plan that has been indicated. We did speak about another student, Ricardo, there. He lives in another part of Cuba. Antonelia said that she's quite fortunate that she continues to have stable internet and electricity. Ricardo seems to have lost power where he is, once again showing how different it is in various parts of Cuba. What do you want to say to Jamaicans in 30 seconds before you go, Antonelia?
His may make it seem as if life over here is as tragic and as bad. You just have to come over here and experience it for yourself. So if there's any student out there that still want to come to Cuba to pursue medicine, don't let all of this negative story and highlight really deter how you think and how you pursue it. Yes, it's going to get a bit difficult, but at the end of the day, it's just a small sacrifice you have to make to become what you want to become in the future.
There you go. Powerful words there by Antonelia as she stays on the ground in Cuba for her medical training, talking to us about what it looks like for her and other students as they deal with U.S. sanctions on the island. Antonelia, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story. Bye. Now, we did talk about Antonelia having a different sort of experience when compared to other students who are there, and Ricardo, who for the second time, because last Friday we attempted to get him on as well, he's having a different sort of experience. An Antiguan student who's in a different part of Cuba for his training and having a different sort of electricity. Whoa. But we're taking a break and coming back to you because you need to know more about Cuba. They've gone through something like this before. Is 2026 better or worse? Some argue that it is. We'll take a deep dive next inside Lead Story.
Make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Hey, what up, one?
Hi, I am Kendi Pang.
Watagwan.
Watagwan.
Datagwan.
Watagwan. Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
Datagwan pa Watagwan.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Ready, tech, grow! Business is fast, easy, flexible, and costs less. Oh, entrepreneurs, let's go digital! The government of Jamaica and the European Union present Digital Jamaica Training Series. Learn how technology grows your business. Choose the right digital tools. Manage your staff, customers, and money digitally. Data security and privacy. Artificial intelligence. We'll be in every parish. Apply online. www.jbdc.net. Log on fast. Digital Jamaica. Powering connectivity for MSMEs.
We've been trying to have a conversation with Ricardo Lockhart there on the ground in Cuba. We finally have him, an Antiguan student who is there pursuing studies on the ground in a country that is now facing increased U.S. sanctions. Ricardo, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story. Ricardo? Oi, 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 we're making it possible.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Ricardo Lockhart is an Antiguan student there in Cuba. Where on the island are you? Where in Cuba are you right now?
I am staying at the school at Ilam. So we're in Havana. So I'm here at the Escuela Latinoamericana de Medicina in Havana. So it's in Havana, just like off the skirts of the Centro de Havana. So we're not in central Havana, just on the outskirts there.
So the Latin American School for Medicine is where you are right now. Which year in your medical studies are you?
So right now I'm in the pre-medical program. So at this present moment, we're just wrapping up our Spanish course. So next week we'll be sitting our language proficiency exams to then move on to our pre-medical studies.
Antigua is not next door to Cuba in the way that Jamaica is. What has your government been saying to you about the situation that they're watching on the ground there in Cuba and what it means for you, a student studying in the country?
Well, at the moment, we're just staying put, hoping to hear something sooner or later of like what will be happening. There hasn't been much said as it's such a situation where there's so much unknown and there's just so much of not knowing, do you go home, do you continue? But right now, I think we're all just trying to keep the faith, trying to hold each other together, trying to push through until we could hear some official word as to how to move forward.
Cuba is, we hear, having about 10 days of fuel left before you might have rolling and unrelenting blackouts. Havana is one of the best places to be right now. They allegedly have only 12 to 14 hour blackouts, but there could be social unrest if you get to the situation where there's no more power. How worried are you and your family?
To say worried, the thing is living here in Cuba is that the electricity does go out ever so often. You kind of something that you adapt to. But regarding the complete blackout, what's really worrying in that situation is the internet is dependent on if there is electricity. It's kind of the same thing. No electricity, you have no internet, right? So our main concern is, would we be able to tell our parents, okay, this is what's happening? Would we be able to get communication out? But as I said, the school does their best to keep us informed as to what is happening. They try to keep our morals up. So they're all trying to do what they can do to ensure that we are successful in our studies at the same time, given the situations that we're all facing here in Cuba. I must say, though, that the situation is very different depending on where you are, whether you're in the province or you're here in Havana. At this present moment in Havana, from my understanding, we have the best situation where we do have electricity. We still, as I said, have outages for at least 4 hours or so every day. But thankfully here at ILAM, the electricity is stable and students continue to enjoy having electricity 24/7.
Give us a regional perspective. What has Prime Minister Gaston Brown of Antigua and Barbuda and the government said to you and any other Antiguans who are there? Or has the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States come together and said, students from the OECS, here's what we'll be doing?
No, not yet. We haven't really heard much. We just got a message of support saying that, they're here for us. We're here, they're there in case we need anything. They're doing, I believe, what they can do at this present moment. As I said, it's a very unknown situation. So we just stay put, waiting to hopefully hear something soon as to how we'll be proceeding.
And if you needed to fly out right now, especially given that many major airlines have said they've discontinued service to Cuba, or they have to stop at neighboring countries like the Dominican Republic to get fuel, what would that mean for you if you wanted to leave the island?
Well, thankfully, while being here, you still have to be proactive on yourself, doing what you can to have the information that you have. So I have been looking at the options. For example, like American Airlines, they said that they will continue flying to Cuba, being the fact that they don't, during the proximity of the island.
So that's Ricardo Lockhart talking to us there, breaking up as he continues to talk to us from Cuba. You would have heard there some of the difficulties that we would have had at contacting Ricardo since last Friday. Earlier in the show as well, we were attempting to speak with him, and now we have him frozen as he continues to attempt to speak with us here in Jamaica. We'll disconnect Ricardo right now because it seems that his connection now has completely frozen there, but he's been talking to us about what other Caribbean countries have been doing for their students on the ground in Cuba. Now, let's take a look at the deeper crisis there in Cuba, because we're looking at a country that has dealt with pressures since 1959. And there's some who say the current crisis Well, this moment feels harder than what was dubbed the special period of the 1990s. So to understand what happened in the 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union, we'll take a look at this video that helps us better compare what they're dealing with today and what they dealt with in the past.
Cardenas, an industrial town on the north coast of Cuba. There are few cars or buses on the streets. Instead, most people here travel by bicycle or on horse-drawn carriages.
Cardenas prides itself on using alternative forms of transport, but for many Cubans, bicycles are a grim reminder of the tough times everyone faced following the collapse of the Soviet Union.
I rode a bicycle for a year and a half. I will never ride a bicycle anymore.
For sociologist Marta Nunez, these were the hardest days of her life.
And all of a sudden, all of us had nothing. Nothing. No energy, no electricity, no water, no soap, no nothing.
Shortly after the revolution, Fidel Castro turned to the Soviet Union following the trade embargo imposed by the United States. The Soviets ended up buying all the sugar Cuba could produce at inflated prices and selling it, oil and everything else it needed, at subsidized rates. Then suddenly, it all dried up. Castro announced they'd entered a special period in a time of peace, comparing the ensuing deprivations to a wartime siege. Delia Lopez is co-author of a recently published book on the special period.
The
impact was brutal. Since we did not have oil, we could not operate our factories, do agriculture, and the homes had no power.
Cuba ended up importing more than 1 million bicycles from China because it had run out of fuel for cars. In the countryside, tractors were replaced by oxen, and without fertilizers or fuel for irrigation, there were severe food shortages. Everyone went hungry and lost weight. But for Delia Lopez, it was the blackouts which hurt the most.
The blackouts were like a sword, striking at the heart of Cubans during the special period, because in the heart of the summer months here, it's almost impossible to live without an electric fan.
Thousands fled the island on makeshift boats in a bid to find a better life in the United States. The US reacted by tightening the trade embargo, hoping to push Cuba to the brink of collapse and bring about regime change. But the system survived, and eventually a new benefactor stepped in, Venezuela's Hugo Chavez, who used his oil and petrodollars to come to Cuba's aid. These days, Venezuela is in crisis and can no longer afford such generous assistance, while the US, under President Donald Trump, is once again trying to pressure Cuba to change.
Cuba was never as dependent on Venezuela as it was on the Soviet Union, and today it has commercial ties with a whole range of countries, including China and the European Union.
The economy is struggling, and for many, times remain tough. But the experience of the special period points to the resilience of the Cuban people.
And so that is a 2018 documentary about what has been dubbed the special period in the 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But what we're looking at right now is something entirely different. A different time with all the pressures that Cuba has to bear now, 30 years after, with the declining infrastructure. And what we now see is an increased campaign by President Donald Trump in his second term to completely annihilate the Cuban government. Let's take a listen to the situation on the ground today.
Buildings of Cuba's once magnificent capital, a reflection of a crumbling economy in what was once regarded as the jewel of the Caribbean. It's as though the country had been frozen in time, back to 1962, to when the United States declared an economic, financial, and diplomatic embargo against its tiny communist neighbor. It was at the height of the Cold War. 75-year-old Rolando Ignacio Ruiz was 15 then, just 3 years after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. 60 years later, he laments that the embargo is still in place.
They should have removed it long time ago. If after all this time the United States hasn't achieved anything, it certainly won't now. It only hurts our people, but the government remains in place.
He's not wrong. The world's longest economic embargo has certainly hurt ordinary Cubans, limiting access to medicine, cheap U.S. imports, technology, and credit through a U.S. dollar-dominated financial system. Washington's purpose has always been to modify or force out Cuba's one-party communist system, but clearly it's failed miserably.
On the contrary, in Cuba's case, the embargo has become a fundamental component for the survival of the Cuban state and its current government. The tougher the sanctions, the easier it is to accuse the United States of violating sovereignty, destabilizing the country, and organizing rebellion.
A difficult time, though, for Cubans, as the major supporters that they had keeping them afloat were Venezuela. Now with the removal of Hugo Chavez, no longer able to support them. Mexico, no longer able to send them oil when they just 5 days ago sent humanitarian supplies. And Russia, not able to help at all. That's it for a deep dive. We're going to take a break and come back to you with our global current next inside Lead Story.
Everybody want to save a country right now. One thing about Jamaicans, we might have differences, but we know when something is good for all of us. And when we work together against crime and violence, we are stronger than ever. And that's how we know the Citizen Security Plan can work. That one and CSP. The Citizen Security Plan is an initiative of the Ministry of National Security in partnership with the European Union. It's an all-of-government effort to create safer streets and build stronger communities. Go to mns.gov.jm to learn how you can play your part.
Ready, tech, grow! Business is fast, easy, flexible, and costs less. Oh, entrepreneurs, let's go digital! The government of Jamaica and the European Union present Digital Jamaica Training Series. Learn how technology grows your business. Choose the right digital tools. Manage your staff, customers, and money digitally. Data security and privacy. Artificial intelligence. We'll be in every parish. Apply online. www.jbdc.net. Log on fast. Digital Jamaica. Powering connectivity for MSMEs.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
We now turn to the world stage with 3 stories making headlines across the globe inside our global current. First, we take you to Barbados, where Prime Minister Mia Mottley has secured her 3rd consecutive landslide victory, winning all 30 seats in Parliament. This is the 3rd time she's done it, with a campaign win record of 90-0. 3 times taking all 30 seats. The result raises questions about democratic accountability and what government looks like when there's no opposition in the legislature. But she said it's time to get to work.
Thousands gathered at the National Botanical Gardens as the Barbados Labour Party and its supporters celebrated a historic 3rd straight 30-0 victory at the polls. Addressing supporters, Prime Minister Mia Mottley reaffirmed her commitment to deliver on the promises made during the election campaign. She said she and her 30 members of Parliament will work tirelessly to execute the party's manifesto and serve the people of Barbados. The Prime Minister also called on citizens and residents to partner with government to fulfill those commitments and strengthen the nation.
We commit to continuing to stop poor people from being poor. We commit to fight injustice wherever it is. We commit to trying to provide as many opportunities for as many of you, especially those who are young. Because if we don't create the opportunities for you, you will not want to stay in this country to build it out. So I say to you that there are some things that as government we can and must do. And there's some things that you as citizens, the highest office in the land, that we need you to step up, stand up and step up to the plate and work with us hand in hand.
Prime Minister Motley further pledged closer collaboration with the social partnership, stressing that employment laws and fairness for workers will remain a priority.
We commit to working with the social partnership. You need strong unions to represent you as workers in this country, to be able to continue to make sure that your...
So we're there listening to Prime Minister Mia Moore-Motley there in Barbados, winning not once, not twice, but 3 times. But this has raised concerns, not from the people who voted for her for the 3rd consecutive time, putting the Barbados Labour Party in red there, as you saw on the screen, back in power, but also raising questions about an opposition. The Democratic Labour Party won none of its seats, and former opposition leader Ralph Thorne didn't win his seat either. So we'll watch what happens next. Moving across to Asia and Bangladesh. They had bloody protests. They had students marching on the streets. And now that country has witnessed a leadership transition for the first time in decades. New Prime Minister Tariq Rahman has been sworn in following a landslide election victory. Observers are watching how his administration handles regional alignment, domestic stability, and supply chain challenges, all critical for South Asia's economic and political landscape.
Beyond political statements, many young Bangladeshis have mixed feelings about the elections. They're hopeful yet cautious, especially those who voted for the first time in their lives.
As Gen Z, we didn't get the expected representation and results after shedding so much blood and losing lives. Still, we are very hopeful. We have representatives from the younger generation and we hope they will do something good.
And after all, the election was a kind of dream for us, a new beginning of new Bangladesh.
Here at the Dhaka University campus, where the student uprising first began, many Gen Z voters said they're generally happy with the outcome of the election, but stresses the new government must keep their promises and listen to the voice and aspiration of the younger generation.
Ensure the good governance.
Tariq Rahman has promised his administration will prioritize the rule of law.
No wrongdoing or unlawful activity will be tolerated, regardless of party, religion, race, or differing opinions. Under no circumstances will attacks by the strong against the weak be accepted. Justice will be our guiding principle.
Justice will be our guiding principle. That's the Bangladesh Nationalist Party leader and new Prime Minister Tariq Rahman there after the protests that led to bloody crackdowns in Bangladesh and the removal of Sheikh Hasina. We're now watching as fragile Bangladesh makes its way for the first time in 2 decades in fresh elections. Finally, we're moving to the United States, and during Black History Month, the passing of a global civil rights icon. American leader Jesse Jackson has died at age 84. His legacy includes decades of struggling for racial justice, economic equity, and political representation.
Rights leader who marched alongside Martin Luther King Jr. and later ran for president has died. His family has confirmed he was 84. He died peacefully on Tuesday morning, surrounded by his family, they said in a statement. Aleem Makboul looks back at his life.
November 2008, Barack Obama and a moment of history. In the crowd, the tear-stained face of a man who'd done much to pave the way. The Reverend Jesse Jackson.
It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, change has come to America.
Born to a teenage single mother in Greenville, South Carolina, Jesse Jackson grew up in a world where black and white were legally segregated. In 1959, he won a football scholarship to university, but threw himself into the civil rights struggle that was engulfing America.
And there's a great swell of cheers to welcome Martin Luther King.
Under the leadership of Martin Luther King. Reverend King sent the young Baptist minister to Chicago to organize protests. On marches, the two men faced violent crowds opposed to the movement. Then, in Memphis, Martin Luther King was murdered in front of Jackson. The assassin was later arrested, having fled the country, but Jackson was never convinced he'd been working alone.
This man could not have stalked Dr. King, had the logistical operation, had operative alternative passports, and got out of the country with money alone.
A powerful public speaker, Jackson continued the struggle.
But I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody.
A powerful remembrance there of U.S. civil rights leader Jesse Jackson. That's our global current as we took you through the top 3 stories that you needed to know to close out Lead Story's Global Lead. To remind you, though, what's coming up at 8. That's what I'm going to do now, because after a decade of no new taxes, well, Jamaica pivots. The government has announced a $29.4 billion new revenue measure following Hurricane Melissa. But the reconstruction bill, well, it stands far more at Jamaica $1.3 trillion. That means the package covers just 2% of the total damage. So, what is it really for? Are we rebuilding the country or protecting our credit rating? And what does that mean as we've extended the NHT transfer? And will that higher tourism tax make Jamaica less competitive? Tonight we break down the numbers behind the 2% solution. Join us for the full investigation on Lead Story Prime at 8. I'm Jody-Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story's Global Lead. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next,